Welcome to the Living Centred podcast, a podcast all about learning together how to live lives which are centred on Jesus. Everyone lives centred on something. Our goal is to learn together how every area of our lives, everything about who we are and how we live, can be increasingly oriented around Jesus and transformed by Jesus. Over the Christmas season, we are going to be focusing on what it looks like to centre on Jesus during what is often the busiest and most stress-filled time of year. All of our Christmases look different, but Jesus' invitation is to know more of him and to enjoy more of him as we celebrate the wonder of what it means that he came as Emmanuel, God with us. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name is Adrian, and I want to welcome you to this week's episode of the Living Centred podcast, which is going to be a little bit different. In the lead up to Christmas, with all its joys, concerns, and activities, we want to ask, how do we ensure we stay living centred on Jesus at Christmas? And I've therefore invited three friends to help with this conversation. Becca, Rich, and Alice, it's good to have you here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hooray.
Yay.
Yes. A four-way conversation. What could possibly go wrong?
It's going to be great.
I think so. Well, to ease each of us in then to this conversation, I wonder if I could ask you, what does your Christmas season look like? Alice, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Christmas seasons have looked pretty intense, I suppose, since graduating from university and starting working in the NHS. Yeah. It's often almost the busiest time of year in the NHS. So shifts and the chaos of then trying to see family and friends, it can often just look super busy. And it's been helpful having touchstone points, I guess. My parents gave us all, when we went to uni, an advent calendar that we had little verses in that talked through the Christmas story. And every year there's a kind of, we've got to go and see mum and dad because they restock us with chocolates to put in our advent calendar. Oh yeah, and then I'll read the verses as well. And so it's good to have those points each day, just to check in and be like, oh no, this is not just an intense season. There is something bigger than just the NHS going on. And then also having more opportunities to celebrate, I guess, with the housemates that I've lived with over the years. We often make a point to gather together to remember the season that we're in. And, you know, as a single person, that's just so helpful just to remember I'm part of a community in what otherwise can be a really isolating season. That's probably what my Christmas season looks like.
Really, really helpful.
Great to know.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I love Christmas, as will probably not be news to anyone who's seen me. As you can imagine, if you know me and you're listening to this podcast, yes, I have my Christmas jumper on. And so Christmas is filled with lots of Christmassy things most of the time. Christmas jumpers and decorations and lights and presents. All of that is quite a lot for us. It's also lots of involvement with our Christmas season here at Oasis. Yeah. So lots of different Christmas events that we have coming up. I have a bit of a hand in helping pull together. It's part of my job I really love. But yeah, it is busy, as I said, different busy. And then for us, often looks like a lot of time visiting family and travelling. And so myself and my wife, Jules, we have family who live in Gloucestershire and Sheffield, also Spain, but we don't go there very often. Maybe we should do. Maybe that would be a lovely place to spend Christmas, I know. And so there's quite a lot of travelling, quite a lot of seeing people, catching up and spending time with family.
Really helpful.
For me, it's similar kind of themes. It's very busy. I also love Christmas and I love getting involved. My Christmas season usually starts with working out what songs we can sing with the choir, which often starts in August. I start listening to carols and then I have a break. But no, the actual kind of build up to Christmas, I really love it. There's usually 1,000,001 things with the kids. So 3 kids at home, lots going on from school, end of term stuff. And then we've got lots of families scattered around as well. Yeah. We've increasingly moved towards hosting Christmas and Christmas stuff as the kids got older, which has been a real interesting transition. And it suddenly made me go, right, my house has got to be perfect. And so I end up like the cleaning and the level of decorations have definitely upped in the last couple of years. You know, these really like everything's greenery everywhere. And I do really, really enjoy it, but I definitely put myself under more pressure than is necessary. But yeah, really fun.
Oh, it's really helpful straight off the bat. Like just what strikes me is that within each of the different stages that everyone's at, how life looks different, actually there's this connection of, this season just feels a little bit fuller. The busy word got buzzed around quite a bit. The kind of trying to keep up with everything that needs to happen, that within it trying to find moments to celebrate, but just recognizing, this just feels a lot, which is interesting, isn't it? Sometimes we can think, this is just me, whereas it can just be really helpful to think, I think this is just it at this moment, which I think probably leads us just nicely into the next question is, like, how do you find then living centered on Jesus over Christmas? Rich, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be the answer that everyone's going to come to, but I do find it hard. I think it's easy with my role being so involved in everything we're pulling together at church to spend lots of time doing things for Jesus and not spend lots of time, particularly over the Christmas season, being with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that can be a challenge, that there's so much activity of other things, even good things, all good things really, all things that I love, but things that mean that I, as we've expressed, am very busy, and therefore Jesus can easily be the thing that gets squeezed out in the season which is there to celebrate his birth. I also find that just because the schedule of life, daily routines and rhythms look different over the Christmas season, the daily rhythms that I live with that help me in my walk with Jesus and living centered on him day to day can get lost because everything gets so upended. I think we'd all know the experience of not quite being sure what day it is, somewhere in that period between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And so because of that, the foundation blocks and the building blocks that form up lots of my day-to-day walk with Jesus suddenly are all looking different. That can be challenging. It can also just be really tiring, is the other thing. For us, lots of traveling, that's tiring. It's lots of time with people. That's tiring for me as an introvert. And so those are some particular challenges that I think I find with the Christmas season.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, I think the kind of busyness of it is often, there's lots of joy and happiness and light and life. And actually sometimes that can be a bit confronting as well, particularly if life doesn't look joyful or things around it's the darkest part of the year. As a cyclist, not my favourite time of the year. But you're sort of confronted all the time with the joy of and celebration and family and all those things. And actually, then when trying to say, Jesus, where are you in the midst of this? It's often say, well, Jesus, actually, I don't feel the joy that I'm being forced and surrounded by. Actually, where are you? I know you're here. We're celebrating you, but I need to know you close because actually this is really hard. So it's hard to almost to find him in it and to remember that he has come, that brings us hope, but it's not hope that then squashes down the reality of the darkness that's around us. That makes sense?
Totally
Yeah,
does.
totally.
Really does.
Both of what you've said is definitely kind of resonating with me. I think, do you find it really hard? I think the routines and rhythms that you mentioned, Rich, that is definitely a big thing for me. They just slip, and they've already slipped this year. So I'm having to fight to get those back in, and I prioritise completely different things. And it's just, at the moment, I've got a spreadsheet on my phone of Christmas presents for all of my 13, 14 nephews and nieces and various other people and all the gifts that my kids are getting. And that gets far more attention than my Bible right now. And it's those things, they creep in and they feel so important. And yet I know that's not true. I know that actually those things just don't matter. And so it's just really tricky to keep my eyes fixed on him.
I find this so helpful to talk about because I think it can feel like, this season is, the most wonderful time of the year. And therefore it is like, we've got to be filled with joy, and that isn't always how you feel. I think it's just helpful to hear that and just speak it out and go, sometimes I don't feel like that. And it's like, where's the space to feel that? Or, but it is the most wonderful time of the year. But that in itself becomes a pressure of how do I make sure this is the most wonderful time of the year? And just living then with the pressure of getting your home to be how you want it to be, or just getting all the presents together, getting the spreadsheets done, doing your
spreadsheet.
I can't believe you got
It's just amazing.
We've got a spreadsheet as well.
There you go. They're all jumping out now. Spreadsheets.
Oh my word.
Love it.
We have the spreadsheet king and queen in the room. But it's that reality though within it is that suddenly life just looks different. Routines go, and that routine goes at a point where we're often more tired than we would normally be because it's towards the end of the year. As we've already said, it's a darker time of the year, which affects us, that it's a point where we're looking for the new and feeling kind of that tiredness. And just love that sense of just what you said, Rich, at the beginning, of that you can find yourself like thinking there's all these things that are for Jesus, and yet I'm finding it hard to find time with Jesus. And the lack of routine and the good things of seeing people is just like, actually, where am I allowing like those moments to just remember, yep, where are you, Jesus, in this? How am I encountering you? It's helpful. And I find it helpful to just say, yep, let's call it. And just say, this time of the year feels a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether Jesus' invitation is, hey, yeah, let's start from that real place. And that doesn't mean that it's instantly going to change, actually. It means that we're being invited to say, okay, what does Jesus call to simplicity in how we live, what we say, what we do, what we think, the purpose and what we're here for of loving God and loving people? How does that then become a moment to be enjoyed and to shape Christmas and this season, which I think is exciting, but I don't think it happens overnight. That's the thing I'm contemplating at the moment, is I'm thinking, yep, all of these things I feel and know, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be a quick fix. I guess then is, rather than leaving us at this place of, yeah, it's just hard, maybe it's from the place of reality of then saying, well, then what does help us? What helps you in staying centered on Jesus through this season? Becca, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things that kind of keep me grounded. The first of those is Advent and the themes of Advent, and this kind of building towards something which is this great joy and celebration, and yet we're living in this broken world, and so we're living in this in-between stage of Jesus has come and yet he is still to come. And they're engaging with that theme. It does just really help us. And I think increasingly over the last few years, we've been talking about it a lot more at home and talking about it a bit with the girls. And this has even started coming into the way that we decorate our house, which feels very odd. And probably many of you will laugh at us for this, but even like first weekend of December, our lights went up outside, and that genuinely, me and Mike were like, this is like a prophetic statement of light in the darkness. And it just felt really good and a way of expressing that. And then slowly but surely each week we add something to it. And then kind of a week out from Christmas, we'll put up our tree. Wow. And the idea kind of being that we're building towards something that is to be celebrated. By the time we've got the tree up, it is new and exciting. So the tree doesn't come down, Boxing Day, because it's all done and dusted. It's still exciting. It's still new. And it is just part of this whole kind of building up to this feast of Jesus and who he is, and talking that through the girls. So it does help us, I think, just to engage with that a little bit. And the other thing that I just love about Christmas, and when I get to engage in it, I know that it does me good, and that is singing Christmas carols. I think for so many people, it can just be a tradition that feels Christmassy and feels really lovely, but I genuinely love so many different carols. The words in some of them are just phenomenal, and they speak of truths. And I think every year I come away thinking, oh, wow, I've not heard that in that carol before. I think because they're often more complicated words, and I don't know, they're familiar, but yet we don't sing them all the time. There's just something in it. And so even when we sing them as a congregation and I have them playing at home, I just love it because it often reveals something of Jesus to me.
That's great.
Things for me.
A little plug for the Oasis Christmas album.
Nice.
We have nothing going on repeat in our house.
Good news for all people. It's called, by Oasis Church Birmingham, which is streaming now on Spotify and Amazon and wherever else you get your Christmas music.
Very smooth.
A great plug. Great
Nicely
plug.
done, Rich. Nicely done.
For us, so similarly, engaging with Advent is really helpful. Every evening we'll just have a moment to light an Advent candle, just as another representation of light in the darkness. And so just taking a moment to pause at the end of the day, light the candle, and then we've got a set of Advent cards where on one side is the number of the day, and on the other side is one of the names of Jesus from the Bible. So it might be something like Light of the World, or I Am, or Emmanuel, God with us. So it's something that just brings out a different aspect of Jesus' character. And we'll just spend a few moments reflecting on that, praying about that, to pause and to to centre on him again and just allow him to come and meet with us. And that feels like a sustainable rhythm for us, that actually where some other rhythms have maybe gone a bit out the window at that point, that's something we can do together as a family. For us as well, pacing the season is really helpful to do. So our pace is probably slightly different to Becca and her family's, in that we would also take some time to put our Christmas decorations up. The difference would be we would start in early to mid-November. And so our house has now just about by kind of early December reached full Christmassiness. I don't think the word grotto would be an inappropriate description of my home at the moment.
Your house glows in Northfield, doesn't it?
Really? You can spot it coming down the road.
It is amazing. It is a sight to behold.
I think we might take the girls for a drive-by.
Oh, definitely worth doing.
Yeah.
But that kind of reflects that because we love Christmas, we love all of those aspects of it. Pacing the season is really helpful. So it doesn't feel like there's a big rush to get everything ready at the end. Having a little bit of space across the season where maybe, starts a bit earlier than some people might be comfortable with. But for us, it enables us to kind of build up a bit, which we find really helpful. I think alongside that, it's identifying what over the Christmas season is restoring to me during times which are particularly draining or tiring. As one example, I find spending time with people really good, but also really draining. Yeah. Particularly, weirdly, indoor time with people, hanging out, watching all the Christmas TV and things like that is somewhat restful, but is also a little bit draining for me. Whereas actually, I find maybe going out for a walk a bit more restoring, even if that's with other people. And so it's looking at actually, are there ways to build in throughout the Christmas season things that I know are restorative to me, that are going to do me good, and kind of build that in within the structure of the Christmas season. And then the last thing I'd say as well is a hard one to do, which is identifying boundaries which are helpful. That again would be on a similar theme of pacing it. Sometimes that might mean arriving with family later than we might want or they might want. It might mean leaving slightly earlier than they might want or we might want. In order to build some rest over the Christmas season, because we know that there's just time when we just need to just be and not be surrounded by so much activity, particularly where working pretty much most of the way up till Christmas. It's not all that long when you factor in a number of long drives, a number of big activities with lots of people. And then it's the new year and suddenly we're diving straight back in because we've got loads of stuff to get ready for the new year, which is really exciting and really good to do. But actually it can be really easy to not rest at all. And so I would often find in January, I finish the Christmas holidays not rested at all. And so it's really hard, but really important to build in some boundaries that actually allow physical, mental, emotional rest. Those things I think all help me. Really, really good.
I love your guys' intentionality with this. It's brilliant.
These are my organised thoughts.
I love the
practicalities of how it works out.
It's just great. It's just great. Mine is a bit less, I suppose, structured, a bit more of a jumble, but generally it comes around inviting people into this season because life can be so full with work. It's needing to sort of rest in the spaces in which I've got the joy of, so thinking particularly about my godchildren and my nibblings, apparently is the collective term for nieces and nephews. Who knew?
Nibblings?
Yeah.
That.
But there you go. There's a gift for you all. You know, feeling a sense of responsibility to want to share the joy that I've had of Christmas for all these years, to teach them something of that and share that with them as they start to make their plans and whatever else in life and understand this season. So there's something about actually sharing that with them, and then with the families and friends that I'm part of, actually then helps center me on actually this is what we're doing. It's a moment to pause and to stop. So I think that for me particularly helps, just that invitation of people into the otherwise chaotic season. It's those moments of like having some silly fun that doesn't feel quite as intense as the rest of it. Actually, kids bring that sort of silly element to it, don't they, really? But I think there's something definitely about the community and telling those stories together. But also then at work and being able to then share with colleagues. I think particularly around the season, it can feel so sad at work. Yeah. And so people often comment. I was even talking to some of the nurses yesterday, were talking about their last Christmas and just how grim it was. It was the Young People's Cancer Ward and just some of the events that happened on that Christmas day. And so just to be able to share that space with them and talk about the sort of the darkness of that. But then is the moment to, for me, as it's kind of, so present in our reality, Christmas is all around, to then say, actually, this is what Christmas means to me. This is how I navigate what feels like a really dark season. And often friends will want to come to carol services and things like that because people want to hear that hope, don't they? We need that hope. Yeah, so in being able to share that story with others, it's that prompt for me. I need this. Like, let's remember what we're doing here. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes loads
really
of sense.
Great. Yeah,
it makes loads of sense. It's really helpful. What I love is there's some crossover, but different, and some of the differences comes out in personality. So I love it. I just got to watch how much time I spend with people. I just want to invite other people in. It's just there.
Do me good. Yeah,
that's going to do me good. I think but it's knowing yourself, isn't it? In it, I just loved it. Of whether it's the whole season of Advent, of the lead up into Christmas, out of Christmas, of just allowing that to kind of be something that draws you in as a way of building a rhythm in. Being intentional of Advent, even then shaping like how you decorate your house, of then using the carols that are sung at this time of year to just allow us to just see the richness of who Jesus is and all that Jesus has done, of those moments of just saying, well, how am I going to pace this? How am I going to use opportunities of things that I've got to do to actually be ways in which it can still be restoring for me? I love it, of identifying boundaries. Yeah, it's just really good. I think a couple other ones I throw in there is one, I really, really love our communion service on Christmas Eve. It's probably, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but it's probably my favourite service of the entire year. It probably is. And it's just, I think what it does is it invites me to stillness and to be present with a group of people with Jesus that is just incredibly precious, whilst everything else feels like it's crescendoing in a bizarre speed fest to a day that potentially could disappoint because you're believing it's going to be the best day of the year, and try and make it that, whereas it suddenly is this in the stillness, in the quietness of just encountering Jesus. And I find that just profoundly helpful. The other thing that I've found helpful actually is often Radio 4, who will do like a drama. And so actually I was going to do a plug for one that I listened to actually in the lead up, which is called A Time to Dance, and we'll put it in the show notes. And it's a retelling of the Christmas story, and it focuses in on a shepherd and something they're living with and their encounter with Jesus and how that changes them, but also on obviously Mary and Joseph, and gives, I'm not going to spoil it, but it gives a perspective of Joseph that undid me. I was listening to it reading the dogs. Not reading the dogs. I was listening to it walking the dogs rather than reading them or reading to them. I was listening to it as I was walking the dogs, and there was 3 moments within, and you can, if you listen to it, you can try and figure out when they were. There were 3 moments within it where I just started crying. It just so moved me of just seeing this beautiful story that involves humans, because that was the whole point, God coming and connecting in a way that would change us forever. And it just profoundly changed me. So yeah, that would be the things that I'd add in terms of helping. Really which great, kind of, normally at this point, I want to say this, which is thank you each for sharing. As always, does my heart good. One might say is well and truly full. I guess the thing I'd normally do at this point is then say, well, this is what I'm going to be reflecting on then out of this. And for me, I'm not going to put it in the next week and say over the Christmas season, this is the thing I'm going to be reflecting on. And I think for me, I'm going to say my thing, but then I'd like each of us to say your thing. I think for me, it's going to be the decoration thing. If I'm brutally honest, the decoration is a chore for me. It genuinely is. I feel like I know I'm going to do this. I like putting lights on outside because of the whole thing of it. Oh yeah, there's light in the darkness. But I tend to just feel like this is a job to get done. Okay, better do it. Better get the tree down. Better. Which just feels like, oh man, doesn't that expose my heart? And so I feel like there's something of maybe just not feeling like it's all got to be done in one go, but just allowing it to be paced. And in the pacing, remember some things about who Jesus is, why he came. And as I'm doing something in the decorating, I don't know quite what, but I just feel like there's going to be something of just enjoying Jesus through not seeing this as a chore. So yeah, that's me.
That's really good.
Who wants to go next?
Well, I clearly need to get a spreadsheet, don't I?
That's the number one thing.
I don't know how you do Christmas without one, to be honest.
I was just thinking about that, what you were saying about the communion service. I found it quite hard to get to the communion service just because of work. It's often clashed. But actually, there's something in that rhythm of sharing communion, thinking about actually if I'm spending time with friends and family, actually, those that know Jesus too, and maybe even inviting communion into that space. Actually, that's not something. Well, it's something we used to do as friends, is when we met, share communion together. But actually, maybe in this season, that might be something just to bring into a rhythm over Christmas. Because I'm still eating at 3 times a day. Actually, although the rest of life may be chaotic, there's still some rhythms. Actually, there might be a good opportunity to get into.
That's great.
For me, I've actually just been thinking about a little passage in Luke. This is when the shepherds come and meet the baby Jesus. And it says this in Luke chapter 2, that when they'd seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they'd heard and seen. And I think there are 3 things in that little verse that I'm going to try and think about this year. And so in reverse order, glorifying and praising God. So what are some moments of thankfulness that I can seek to embrace over the Christmas season that allow me to take my eyes off of all of the stuff that I've got going on and turn it back to God? And then the one before that is Mary, treasuring all those things and pondering them in her heart. And so what are some moments when I can reflect on the things that we've talked about in terms of darkness being a difficult season for many, but also, there are some deep things in the Christmas story which speak to everything we are as human beings, that that God came and was born as a baby in Jesus. And I want to make sure I find time to do that and to ponder those and to treasure them. The last one, or the first one, is to share it with other people. Nice. And so who could I share this with this Christmas, and what might that look like? And so in the very simplest way, our Christmas lights, as we've mentioned, are outside, and that's a light in the darkness, sharing with my street, which I like to think has inspired others on my street to also put out some of their Christmas lights.
Fun.
But so thinking, what can I share and who can I share it with as well this Christmas?
Really
so good. Oh my goodness. It's just been so fun to hear everybody's thoughts and what they're going to do. I'm going to take away loads, actually. I think there's maybe a couple of things that stick out. So I really loved the Advent calendar and cards that you mentioned, Rich. I think this year I've already sort of decided that I'm going to, in terms of trying to get a rhythm back in, I've downloaded an Advent reading plan. It's just a couple of verses a day that I can read and maybe journal and meditate on, just to try and get into some sort of routine and rhythm. I'm just wondering whether I can also bring that to a time when we light the Advent candle as a family, and whether we could talk about some of those things together as a family. That would be a good thing to do. And I think, the kind of sharing and community, I think life gets so, as we said, so busy over Christmas, and being involved in lots of different events, it's so easy to forget to actually invite anyone to them. Yeah. And so actually I feel challenged to be thinking about, who am I inviting?
It's really good.
Things for me.
Oh, that's good. And then lastly, but by no means least, how about you, my listening friends? What are you going to be considering over this Christmas season out of so much that has been shared through our 4-way conversation, which has been utter fun and utter joy?
Very good.
Very good indeed. Let's get the very goods in. Thanks so much for listening. And I do hope that you have a good and peace-filled Christmas. And I just wanted to give you heads up on something we're going to be doing slightly different over the next couple of weeks as we enter the beauty of Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and the days after, is we're going to release 4 short devotionals that are looking at different characters within the Christmas story to allow us to see more of Jesus and receive more of Jesus. So I hope you'll listen to them and enjoy them. I just want to finish by just praying for each and every one of us. I pray we would know more of the wonder and beauty of living centered on Jesus throughout this Christmas season. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Living Centered podcast. New episodes are released every Monday, and if you enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe on your chosen podcast provider to receive them direct each week. Living Centred is produced by the team at Oasis Church in Birmingham, UK, and you can find out more and get in touch with the team via theoasischurch.com.